Hey guys, I've been getting a lot of messages asking me about the new Vatic Onis and how they compare to other paddles. Now, I haven't had these for too long, but I wanted to make this video to provide some early thoughts and how they compare to other paddles, specifically the Joola Gen 3s and the Gearbox Pro Powers. Now, the two Oni paddles I got to try were the 16mm flash and the V7. These are the same exact molds as Vatic's previous lines, so the flash is still that hybrid shape with a 5.3-inch handle, while the V7 is elongated and also with a 5.3-inch handle. For the construction, Vatic has done something new, where they're still doing thermoforming, but instead they use a composite foam core instead of a standard polypropylene one seen in the previous models, which drastically changes how these paddles play. I don't believe they've released too many details on the construction yet, but they do have pictures of the interior on their website if you are interested in taking a look. When you first hit these paddles with soft shots like dinks at the kitchen line, you won't think this paddle is anything special. It feels more plush and controllable than the original Vatic line, but not as soft as the Prisms. The biggest difference is once you start swinging a bit more and applying more force. The power and pop both jump up exponentially, where it hits significantly harder than all of their other paddles. I came from using a Spartus Apollo, and it wasn't difficult transitioning over to shots like drops, dinks, and resets, but where I struggled was with reining in baseline drives, punch volleys, and serve returns, as they will fly out if you're not careful. I would say that the power is just underneath the Gearbox PPEs and Joola Gen 3s once the paddle gets broken in a bit. The Onis are comparable, but just underneath in power. However, the advantage of the Onis over those other paddles is how much easier it is to rein in the soft game during dinks, drops, and resets, since the Oni feels soft when you don't apply too much force into your shots, and power only comes once you start swinging a bit more. During the soft game, the sound of the paddle is normal, but when you start hitting harder, you begin to get a louder sound that's similar to the Joola Gen 3s and Pursuit Pros. For the swing weights, I got 116 for the Flash and 120 for the V7, while the twist weight measurements were 6.61 and 6.70 respectively. Now, both these measurements are pretty in line with what we see with the previous models, so the maneuverability is the same compared to the Prisms and the original Vatics. But the one thing to note is that the sweet spot on the Onis was a bit smaller than the previous models. They felt less forgiving, and this was definitely more noticeable on the V7 than the Flash. I compare the sweet spots to the Joola Gen 3s, specifically the Magnus and Perseus 16mm, but like the Gen 3s, they're still more forgiving than the Gearbox PPEs. As for the spin, the previous Vatic paddles all ranked pretty high for spin, and I would say that the Onis are about the same. They're not top tier like other paddles I've tried, like the Spartus Apollo and Thrive Azul, but I would still consider it high spin. Overall, I think these are better power paddles than the new Joola and Gearbox paddles. The Onis are not as poppy and uncontrollable during the soft game, and that high level of power and pop is comparable to them and only comes when you start swinging a bit harder. While I did find the soft game to be even better than Vatic's original paddle, the sweet spot I did find to not be as good as other Gen 2 thermoform paddles, and you can feel that when you hit off-center shots, since that power I spoke of earlier does not come when you don't hit the sweet spot. Now, I do want to note that I'm only making this video as an early review to help satisfy people's curiosities regarding this paddle. I've only used this paddle for 3 days and a total of 8 hours, and the Joola Gen 3s for even less, so this isn't a thorough review where I've done extensive testing on everything, but take this more as some early thoughts on these opinions and comparisons. One more thing I've had to add in is regarding the durability of the paddle, which is why I've had to delay the release of this video a bit. Chris Olsen from the Pickleball studio mentioned that one of his Oni paddles desponded where some of the foam was leaking out of the core, and the paddle began hitting a lot harder and became pretty uncontrollable. I checked the ones I have, and fortunately that hasn't happened to either the Flash or V7, though I also don't hit very hard, so that could be why mine hasn't faced any issues. Now, Vatic's warranty does cover this in case this does happen, but I did want to add this section into this video to warn you all that this could potentially be an issue. I personally don't know for sure, but I will defer to Chris and suggest you wait for his review to make a better informed decision, though I will also continue using the paddle and will post an update video if I do face any issues. That said, if you ask for my current thoughts as of right now, I do think this is probably the most player-friendly power paddle on the market, and do recommend this over both the Gen 3s and Gearboxes. If you do want to pick one up, I've added my discount code here and a link in the video description below, and if you want to get a Joola or Gearbox paddle, I've also added Chris's discount codes.
You can beat anything here, so
Yeah.
I don't work.